All right. Hello, everybody. I'm so happy we had this previous lightning talk about React Native because now I can talk more about React Native now that everybody knows what it is and what you can do with it. And I'm actually working and living in Poland right now, so it looks like Poland is a good place for React Native. Thanks to our sponsors for making this happen. My name is FERRAN. I'm actually from Spain, and as I said, right now I work and live in Poland. I work in this company called Stack. You might have heard about it. We organized React Native Europe a couple of weeks ago, and we are basically specialized in React Native and React. We have several contributors to the platform. You should definitely check it out. You can also follow me on Twitter or Medium. And let's start it. Actually, I started writing Android code in Java, and I did a project. All this talk is about personal project, about building an app, which is a thing I recommend to everybody. And I did this Android so-called nano degree. Maybe you have heard of it. It's Udacity program. And I built an Android app as part of final project. And I actually never released it to public. I did a private beta, but not to the public because I always check with my friends that have iPhone, and I cannot sell it to them. I cannot say, hey, I did this app, you can use it. I was missing a lot of people. Actually, usually they are people with money, so it's important to build for them. So I really like this nano degree because the first part was about coming up with an idea, doing some designs, and then second part was about coding. And the idea is pretty simple, and I always say that if you want to build a mobile app, make it that is useful for you, that you want to use it every day, that it's really useful, and then it might be useful for others. So what I proposed then was to build TV show applications, so it's about organizing your TV shows, wherever you're watching, check which episodes have you watched, which not, have notifications of upcoming episodes, use widgets. I was forced to use several stuff like databases, so we'll try to replicate this in React Native today. I also did some sketches. Actually, I used Sketch with material designed, and they look pretty real, how they will look. I would just show this to you because you have context of what this app is about, right? So you can search for TV shows on the right. You would have some tabs. You might be familiar with Android design, right? You have available episodes, upcoming. The final product looks a bit different, but you get the idea. We also have TV show details where you can mark whole episode, whole season watch or not, and then you can go to episodes, something like that. So let's see. One thing I want to say to this journey is this is called Greenfield application. It's not. I didn't take the Android app, and I've been building React Native on top of it. There are apps that do this, like Instagram or Airbnb. They have a lot of React Native inside. I just went to documentation and I ran this comment. React Native init, the name of your app, and you will get this nice app, Hello World, or Hello React Native, I'm not sure, and you will get it for iPhone and Android, right? And these are the points that I want to show you today, and these are things I believe all apps need to have. And you may think, this guy is only going to talk good things of React Native and how easy and nice it is, and it's not that easy. Actually, I cut some stuff from here because we wouldn't have time. Let's start for architecture. It's a pretty heavy point, and like everything in life, I believe you need a good architecture. You need to think about it before start coding the app. If not, if you have to change it after, especially when your users are using it, it's going to be complicated. So I choose this tag. It's actually pretty similar. If you found there is some pretty famous Medium post about React Native stuff. I use Redux, I'm familiar with it, but you would see that I try to keep the minimum amount on state because I'm using a phone. So I need, in this case, a database. I use Realm because I want the app to be first class offline. We need to be able to use phone apps without internet if possible. I have some complicated logic, some asynchronous actions, side effects, so I use redux-observable. It's a matter of preference. You could also use Sagas. And I do some caching with async storages from React Native too. So let me show you how this looks. You're all familiar with Redux, I guess, so we have one source of truth here. reducers update my state, can change my React Native views. But they also needed a database. So I add this realm here, and I found it makes a lot of sense that for those side effects of writing in database, you could do it in a view, you could do it in reducer, you could do it as part of action. And actually, if you do it as part of asynchronous action, it works pretty well. Like for API calls, I use some caching, and this gets complicated. So here's when I use redux-observable, and we get to the full architecture. So in my app, I actually have two sources of truth. One is from Redux, one is from database. And my views can only be updated from those 2 points. And I know this graph looks a bit tedious, so I have an example about it. I have some simplified code on how it would be to go to search screen and download all the TV show data, including episodes data, and so on. So this kind of simplified code, it's Redux JS and redux-observable syntax. So imagine you dispatch a Redux action. So we have this called epic that it's listening for this fetch request, and we'll do all of this. It's pretty declarative, and I simplified this code about fetching show, fetching episodes, fetching images. I'm going for different APIs, and if everything is okay, I would save it to database, and I would return success. So let's check the first part. First part is listening for requests and doing those fetches. And in the application, it would do something like this. You would go to search screen. Maybe you are interested in Game of Thrones. I want to follow this show. I would click to follow, and things start happening, right? My reducer gets updated, so this button where I click for download and gets disabled, so you cannot do it again. And on the top of the image, you see this download icon, because it's good to inform your users what's happening. So what I just described is something like this. We dispatch that action. This action also is doing some API requests as part of a side effect. And in the meantime, I update my view. For the second part, if everything is okay, I would add the show to the database. And remember, this database is another source of truth, so I have different components that can listen for it. So in this case, for my first screen, download is complete. The button is still disabled because I don't want to refetch it. You might not see it, but it's check on following. There is another image on top of the poster of this show, which it means you are following it, because you can set it as pending or seen. And then if I go back to the previous screen, it will show me the first episode that it's available for you to watch that you didn't mark it as watch. And this is just when the API call has finished and everything was okay. It just updated if you have state, and the database and views were notified. And I want to show you how this looks in the app. So you would click the add button, some show you're interested. And here is where we send our action. It's in download state. And when we go back now, previously was nothing. Now show will be download, so we'll get it. Found this architecture works pretty good. There is a lot of questions on how to use Realm and Redux together. You can try it this way. A bit more about architecture, and you need to think about this is database migration. It's always going to happen that you release your app and you need to update database. You want to add something, some field, you want to remove, modify something. And the way I used to do it in Android with SQLite, they use, it's so-called linear migrations. So you have schema version, first one. You want to update it, you would make schema version 2, and so on. And you need to do this linear migration. You cannot do if else, or you cannot update the latest version. You need to pass through all steps. And I found this problem, this mistake, like you have schema version 1, and some people don't have this update my app regularly, right? They might update it after 6 months. And if they have to go from schema 1 to 4, they need to pass through all of those. If not, the app will crash. So you need to make sure that database solution you use for your React Native app supports this, and Realm supports it. It has this linear migration concept. So I can say this schema has this migration function, this schema has the other one, and it will apply it linear if the schema version of your phone is not the latest one. And also make sure about backup and restore. When you get new phone, you don't want to download all the shows again, right? You download the app and you expect something is restored there. I didn't dig deeper here, but you can use something like Google Drive. So with Realm would be quite easy to generate JSON from this database and upload it there, and you can restore it when user gets a new phone. And yeah, we've been like 10 minutes and we're almost there. We have architecture. Let's go for something more fun for your app, which is styling and theme. And remember, I'm doing this app myself, and unless you have a big UI team or you're a great designer, you need to come up with something, because building UI kit for a mobile application, it's a hard problem. There are really nice libraries with a lot of GitHub stars, because it's a problem that takes time. I cannot be building. It's a problem when you start building a React Native app. If I have to build a button, a checkbox, and so on, it's time consuming, it's tedious. So I go for the same I would go writing Android app. I go for material design. And one of the things I found nice of material design is this concept they start building about platform adaptation. Google starts building their iPhone apps using material design, and they do this so-called platform adaptation. So it's kind of material design, but you would see iPhone on the right, and you'll see, for example, the back button from iPhone. So user gets more familiar with it. And in the next screen, you could see similar example. Material design, but checkbox switches from iOS, they get familiar. So I wanted to build all of this. And because in my company, with a lot of open source, we are working in native paper. And React Native paper is basically this. Based on paper, which is material design. And the way to use it is very easy. And you saw there is styling and theme is also incorporated here. You'll see why. To use this library, it provides you with light and dark theme. You can override values like colors. You can use this paper provider, like you would use it with Redux as provided too, right? You would pass this theme as context, and you can use this high order component with theme, so you can use it in any component. You can access this theme, and the nice thing of doing that this way is you can change the theme at runtime. You can change those values. And with this, I could support this day and night mode. I wanted this feature from Android. What is day and night mode? So you could show your app in light theme during the day or dark theme during the night, like you can do it with Twitter. So for my app, it was just like this to make it dark, because it's supported by paper. So think about styling and theming for your app, and which kit you could use. If you want to use material design, I recommend you go for paper. So you have this styling and theme. I love this animation, it's so bad. All right, what else? Internationalization. This long word is basically your app needs to support different languages, mobile apps especially. And usually the way it works natively, it's app will show in the language your phone is set up, right? So you have your phone in Spanish, the apps would be in Spanish if it's supported. And I would look no far of using this library, because they already do these bridges with native code, and it will use the default system locale, and it has this nice feature, this fallback language. This is pretty important if you don't have translator teams. I try to translate myself, I ask some friend, and in some language they might be not full translated, some missing keys, you might make this mistake, so it would default to fallback language, if it would be English, for example, so you don't show a key somewhere. And it's familiar, it has familiar syntax if you're a web developer, right? So to use this library, you should just import it, specify the translations. You could also specify English, USA version, and beta version, different versions, and then you can use it like this in your components. And this would show it in the language your phone is set up. Let's see how it works. So in iPhone, I have the app in English, right? I would change language in Spanish, and it's going to take a while, which is not bad, because it means iOS here is doing the right thing, because what I expect to happen is the same as in native. When I go back to my app, it should be already in Spanish without asking the user to do anything. So in this case, the JS bundle from React Native, it's rebuilt, and you see the app in Spanish, which is what I'm expecting. And in Android, this is one of the pain points of Android I found, is nothing happens. And you need to refresh your bundle automatically, or the user will need to kill the app or wait the app is killed, and so on. So we need to fix this, and if you want to know how you can read this article, I needed to add 4 lines of native code, and you would get it as the user expects. And this is really important. You might think it's a small detail, but those small details count. This is what we expect. So translate your apps. Orientation, this is one of my favorite topics, and I'm hoping you start tweeting some shitstorm here. This is how my app looks in portrait for the search screen. And when you rotate it, it's going to look something like that. And you say, okay, it doesn't look good, not so bad. Some other screens will look bad. So what I do is, okay, I'm going to go to React Native issues or Stack Overflow. I'm going to check how to handle this orientation. And I found the most common answer is this. You don't use your phone as like, you just lock it. That's it, yeah? So every time you found this code, you put this to them. Stop it. Like, you want your app to be good, right? You want the app to stand with the others. So try to support landscape, support any resolution. It needs to be responsive, support tablets, support TVs. With Android, you have a lot of variety of devices. When I develop an Android, I support them. If in React Native I close myself, it's not going to be better. So this is how I would do it in Android, right? This concept is very easy. I define the default layout, the landscape layout, or different layouts for different resolutions. And because on Android, when you rotate, it gets destroyed and rebuilt. It will choose the right layout. And it doesn't work like this in React Native. They add this piece of code at the bottom. It means when there is orientation change, don't do anything. So we need to handle it. You can do it with JavaScript. One way, you get the width of your font with dimensions from React Native. You save it in state. Orientation change is just a state change, right? External. And the views of React Native, which is the most basic component, has this onLayout property. You can listen for changes. And with this width, you can calculate how your layout should look like. So I can make it look like this. So I have more space, I have more items, I have nicer margins, easier to read. If my font is big enough, I can also change this layout. And of course, you need to build for tablets and more. Probably in your tablet, you would follow this design, which you have your small list on the left, and on the right, you have the details view. So please, it's really, don't lock orientation. We have it. I want to talk a bit about navigation, and I don't want to go there again because it's also bad for Twitter and all. Navigation, there are several libraries. We talk about always which is better, which is worse, if they are all good, if they are all bad. But I want to talk about two concepts of navigation that maybe we are not so familiar. One is deep linking. So what is deep linking? I have also this URL for my app, and I want my app to understand this URL. I would like my app to understand it and open it based on this URL. And this is very powerful because user doesn't go away, they go to your app. And React Native provides you with linking. It has some native bridges, of course, but you need to configure your app to handle this. And it's different with iOS and Android, and there's no way you can skip it. For example, for iOS to understand these links, apart from reading the documentation, adding some code, you need to upload a file to your web server. On Android, it's different. Android needs a small change in the code because the way Android works with deep linking, it will open new task. This is bad because in React Native you have JavaScript context is shared between instances. So if you change something in one, it will change the other. So just trust me, put single task, deep linking will work. And this is how it would look in your JavaScript. So when your top component did mount, you can check for this linked get initial URL. So you can check if your app was started by a URL with a custom URL. And you can handle it. You can take the user to another screen. And when your app is still alive or in the background, you can listen for changes because you can send more linkings. How this works? So this is me talking with myself on Telegram, and check this new one is Game of Thrones, yeah? So you can click, and in this case, my app understands this link, and the system shows up. Do you want to open it with your app? Just once, always. I click once, I don't trust it, and it will take me, in this case, to Game of Thrones detail page. This is really powerful for your app. In this case, it takes me to here because I already downloaded this show previously. But if I don't have it, you could take the user to search screen, offer them to download. Of course, if they don't have the app installed, they could go to your website, and you can show maybe you want to use the app. So think about deep linking also. We got to that. Next thing of navigation is dark point React Native. Preserving navigation, what's that? So what's going to happen with React Native app goes to background? So you are in an app, you switch to browser, check some stuff. Our app is in the background, right? And when the app is in the background, it's a sign for the operating system to say, you can kill my app. The operating system is a big killer, and when it needs memory, it just kills apps from background. And because React Native has an overhead, it needs to run this JavaScript. I found when I'm actively using my phone, it can be 1 minute, it can be less, my app is gone, it's destroyed. The JS bundle is destroyed. And what happens with this? So all the state in your app, let's say Redux State, for example, everything, it will be gone, right? So the user will come back, and one important thing is that navigation will be gone. And this is bad. How we can solve it? The way I solve it, at least, you can use it differently. It would depend on navigation solution. If you use pure JavaScript navigation solution, you can use app state from React Native, and it's nothing else than a listener to know when your app goes to the background or to the foreground. So in this case, I would listen for it, and when my app goes to the background, I just persist my navigation state. Maybe you could use Redux persist. I used to use manually. And I save this part of state. You can save it in async storage of React Native, for example. And you would check then in your top component, in did mount again, because it will only be called if your app was destroyed previously, right? It will be remounted. You could rehydrate this state. So you can take the user back where they were and without them noticing. I can show you an example of this. So I will open my app. I'm going to search for some superhero TV shows here. It will work because it's a video, yeah. I will take my app to the background. It's in the background already. So now I persist that state, and I'm going to emulate that the system operating kills it, so I will kill it. And now when you open it again, you will be where you were. And you need to do this manually. I haven't found a lot of information about it, but try with React Native, try an app, you will see. So think about persisting navigation. And let's go to even darker place, like native models, yeah, and yeah, it's going to be Storm also. Background task. When I did this app in Android and I said, okay, I'm going to rebuild it in React Native, there was a very, very important thing of this application. It can synchronize in the background. So every day, for all the shows you have collected, it will check if there are new episodes, some modifications, and it will synchronize fresh data. I'm using external APIs, right? And I'm thinking, how I'm going to do this with React Native? It's supporting. I don't find a lot of documentation about background task. Recently, from React Native, I think 0.37, there is Headless JS. And if you read the description, it's great. It says you can run tasks in JavaScript in the background. And for example, you can synchronize fresh data, which is what I want. It's great, no? It's perfect. But it's only available for Android. So there is a product pane here. This is a page where you can go and complain, I want this. But usually, it's hard for them to happen, right? And there is Headless JS for iOS, and this is not there. And this is a dark spot on my app. I'm not sure how I handle this in iOS, and I might need to do it natively or find a way from the native side to start this JavaScript process. Luckily, because I'm an Android guy, I did something for Android. We have this Headless JS in Android, but also there is a Android consent. It's called SyncAdapter, and I use it in my app, and I say I want to use this in React Native because this SyncAdapter handles everything I need. It handles scheduling syncs. It checks if the device has connectivity. If not, it doesn't. It's good for battery because it schedules all this synchronization together from all the apps at the same time, which is better for battery. System operative do everything for you. And you didn't need to reschedule it when you restart your device and so on. So this is great from Android, and I don't have it in React Native. What can I do? So I wrote this React Native SyncAdapter module, and it's a bridge. So React Native has this power. You can write native code, you can bridge it, so you can communicate between JavaScript and native, and between native and JavaScript. So I wrote all this SyncAdapter code in native. You can check Android docs. It's explained, you write it. It starts this Headless JS task, the way it's documented in React Native, and it executes JavaScript code. With that, I can synchronize my shows on the background with Android. So I'll need to find similar stuff with iOS. And the good thing of React Native ecosystem is those libraries. When React Native started, it was pretty hard to work with Android. But time passes, people write libraries, so you just need to install it. You run this nice React Native link command, and you can use this native library. Just to make an idea, I'm not going to explain how to write native module, but there's some Java code, and somehow in some place, in this case I only needed to call this function init, there is this React method annotation, and when the bridge is connected, you can call it from your JavaScript. So think how powerful is this. If you want to know more about this model, how I write it, you can go to the blog post I read about it. And this leads me to a question. Photos of this, you can tweet it. Can I do everything only with JavaScript in React Native? It's enough. It's going to be same as native app. Can I do absolutely everything? And actually, I don't like to answer this, so I put my friend here and it's saying no. It's a pretty nice game. What about all of this? If you're an Android person, maybe you know about widgets, quick settings, quick actions. Let's talk about one, widgets. I did this with the app in Android, desktop widget. Here you have upcoming episodes from shows. It refreshes every 4 hours. How are you going to do this only with React Native? You need to change some XML code and so on. There is also product paint about, hey, can you add this Android home screen widget support? This is from 2015. And I think this is not going to be done, this issue, because I don't know if there is possibility. And what I want to say here is that, okay, we are maybe JavaScript developers, web developers, we love React, and I found there are people that they don't want to go native. I'm not going to write any Java. I don't want to write any Objective-C, nothing at all. If you close those doors, then the people that would open those doors, they don't care about the language, they will be above us. So think about it, open a bit the doors to native. You can get your app to the next stage. Native models. Last mile. There is a full talk about this in React Native Europe conference. But I like this to show you can also do nice stuff with React Native. Like there is delightful interactions. In Android, we have all these collapsible things. I would like this nice stuff in my app. So I added this super nice image to my show, right? And then there is a list, and as you can see, I can scroll the list. There is something here that it's not feel right. Yeah, we have a font screen, so it's like we cannot have all this part of the front screen busy when I'm scrolling, right? What I would prefer is somehow this image to scroll and do this nice collapsible effect. Maybe you've heard of this. So there is this animated API from React Native, and it's powerful. They are every month when they release new version, they are working on it really hard. And one thing you need to care about this is use native driver true. What is use native driver true? So you can write animation in JavaScript, and those animations, they will run entirely in the native side. So you have the smoothness of the native side. It has some restrictions. It supports only transformations and opacity, but you can do pretty much a lot. You can scale, you can translate, you can change opacity, and this is what I need in my example. So I can do something like that. And I know it's very quick explanation about this, but it could be a whole conference about animation, right? That try to check this out because it's pretty delightful. If you want to check more, there is this one about hacks to achieve this. You saw it was about scrolling, so you can do a lot of stuff like photo application. It's great. Another stuff I love at this, it's Android drawers. Could you raise your hand? What you think left up is React Native or Android? Nobody thinks it's React Native. React Native, the left. Okay, and the right, React Native, Android. And so you don't know, and this is the Pepsi challenge. So you need to show the app to somebody and say, is this Android or React Native? And if they don't know, you are going good. They are both React Native. The problem is on the left, you get the default behavior. You have this gray status bar, and because I'm an Android guy, I'm crazy, I check this. This is React Native, I don't like it. And you get this drawer, and if you read specification, this drawer should be above the status bar, and it does completely different. And then I don't know which kind of idea is this. And I wrote this small piece of article about this. 1 minute, it gets so popular. It's like, okay, people care about this, so I show it to you. And there is this status bar component for React Native, and it's not enough. Check it out. We had the last mile, good on time, so let me talk you about permissions. If you want to build React Native app, you need to know about permissions. It's crucial. And you need to write some native stuff here, because there is no way around. But it's easy. For iOS, you might need context permission, so you can describe it. I need this context permission, so I need to do some stuff with it. And when you try to access this permission, the system will show this dialog, and you can accept it or no. And if you don't accept it, your app needs to be able to handle it. It needs to check it, and you don't want it to crash, right? It's solved in iOS, and there is problems with Android again here. Okay, so previously API 23, this is Android Marshmallow, it's 6.0, I think. So previously you download an app and you get all this explanation, you accept it and it's download. Nobody reads that, but you are accepting a lot of permission. That's why Flashlight app can make money, and it did happen. And after this API, they just copied iOS model. I want to ask for permissions. The way it works, they have normal and dangerous permissions, so you only need to ask for those dangerous permissions. React Native has a problem here, has a pain that they cannot update it as fast as the platform goes, because React Native is used internally on Facebook, and you will never get something merged there that can crash Facebook's app, right? So they need to be very careful. And somehow, still today, when you generate a React Native app, it targets Android version 22, which is pretty old. If you target 22, which is previous to 23, by default, all permissions are accepted. The thing is that you can go to your phone, apps, open, and you can revoke permissions, like you can see here. And if you are targeting this SDK, like React Native does by default, when the users revoke some permission here and go back to the app, it will crash. And the thing is that if you check this graph, this is updated every 7 days, I think, from September this year. Almost half of the users in the world, they use 6.0 or above version of Android. Probably they are the users that have money, so you want them. And if the app crashes, they will be like this guy, yeah? I want my breakfast. So BAM your target SDK and use React Native provide permissions Android, and you can see it's specific to Android. It's a problem. We need to solve it. So you can, again, ask for permission. I need the camera. I won't be able to use your camera without it. And you will get if the user accepts it or not. And if it doesn't accept it, you need to handle it. Your app needs to stay. And you will get this, similar to iOS. And this is native dialog. You cannot change it. You cannot style it. It's like that. So be aware of permissions. But wait, this is even something more weird, strange. I built this app. It doesn't have any dangerous permission, right? And I go to apps, my app, and I see this. So it looks like my app is requiring font permission and storage. And it's what's happening here. And this is pretty bad if you have font permission in TV shows app, right? I can intercept your calls and read. So still today there is React Native issue, and it's about some internal dependency they have. They don't remove it because some internal Facebook code. And it's at these dependencies. And I found this is crazy. It's pretty dangerous. You can add those lines of code and you will remove these permissions. But this is so dangerous. There is a Git point app, it's called. It got pretty popular, and it's open source. You can check it. It has like 3,000 stars, something like that. I did this pull request not so long ago about, hey, you missed this, that you have these unnecessary permissions in your app, and it got merged, so it's serious. Be careful about it. Check the permissions. Okay, we're close to the end. App Store. Maybe some of you have used Google Play, App Store, yes. React Native, you can use something called also code push. Have heard of it? Yeah. So you have your native code, right? When you have to change your native code, you need to recompile and you need to release a new version. But with React Native, we can do some stuff. We have the JavaScript bundle. So code push by Microsoft, actually, you can load your JavaScript bundle on the fly from the air. So you can actually, if you only change JavaScript code, which is usually what you do, you can release new versions of your app without going to the Play Store or Apple Store. And it's great. And I think in Apple Store, it would, every new version, it resets the ratings, right? You might not want that. But I found this pretty useful. I will give you one example, and it's about translations again. I have an Android app, and every time I want to add a new language, I want to change a key. Maybe I have a typo. If for a typo in a translation, I need to make a new release, it's crazily painful. And with code push, it's happiness. It's also my friend. I hope he's not seeing this. So you don't need a full release when adding a new language, new key, fixing typos. So if you use React Native, I recommend use code push. You also need to be aware of package name. What is package name? Maybe you have seen it. It identifies your application in the store, and it needs to be unique. And when you generate a new React Native app, you get something like that. You don't want this native example in your package name. Usually you follow convention of com, if it's commercial, your company name, app name. I use something like this. And why is this so important? When you upload your app to the store with package name, you cannot change it. It's impossible. There is WhatsApp. If you check your WhatsApp, package name is com.whatsapp. And all Facebook applications, it's com.facebook, the name of the app. And they cannot change WhatsApp. It's not possible. So be aware of it. Models of free, paid, freemium app. Why I'm talking about this, you cannot change it also, at least on Android. If you make the app for free, you cannot change it to paid. I think in iOS you can, so probably make it paid for iOS. But I recommend freemium method. And there is libraries for using React Native in-app purchases for sure. So you offer your app for free, you give them a taste, you can have premium features that are paid. I recommend that. And ratings. I have an app on the store, it has like 100,000 downloads, it has a lot of ratings, and usually you will get bad ratings. A lot of users are mad, they don't know how to use it, and they write some stuff, maybe hurting you, but you need to be nice. I always answer the same. Please send me an email, I'll try to help you. And I found that half of the time it's useful, and you are here, right, and they give you 1 star, you are here, and then you help them. They give you 5 stars, you're going to be here. And it's great, so try this because you need to maintain your ratings. So I think I talk about a lot of stuff, right? I give you a lot of overview on what I think every native app needs to have. But I think even this is not enough. There is a lot of things we didn't see, right? We didn't talk about typing, testing, splash screens, reporting crashes, offline mode. We talk a bit about databases. I had a slide for performance. I had to carry it, but we didn't talk about this. So to wrap up, I want to ask you some questions. Like, is really making the React Native app faster than I would write an Android app? And for me, it's not. Of course, it gives me a benefit. I can write for both platforms, and probably all the hardware it would be at the beginning. And when I have the app built and I have to maintain it for both platforms, it's much more easier, especially if you're one person. If you have to maintain 2 codes, 1 code is difficult, 2 codes is crazy. So you need to take into account all of that writing a React Native app, it's not that easy, but it can be done, it can be performant, it can feel native, and it can be great. And my last recommendation, if I might, is try to build an app. We are usually building libraries. We want stars, we want followers, right? But I found the best feeling. You write your app, you go to a bus, you see a person, hey, look, this app is great, and it's actually your app. This is amazing. Thank you. If if somebody wants to chat about React Native talk, I will be around till Sunday, so just catch me. Or maybe some question.
Hi.
Hello.
When you do the code pushing over the network, when you only change JavaScript, I know Google is all right with that. Is Apple too? If I recall correctly,
Yeah,
they didn't want you executing.
There were some discussions, I think, about that, but I found it's okay still. I do it, and they allow you to do it. They take time to review your app, like can be days and so on, but you can still do that. If they cut it one day, maybe that then be a problem.
So for now, it's okay.
Yeah,
nice.
it is. You can do it.
How do you recognize if your data is already in the cache? Do you check against hashes, or how do you handle that?
You're asking for the example I showed before of the long
Yep.
show. I just like you can have this data safe in your async storage, for example, or database. So with redux-observable, you can check if it's already there and return success with that data already, and you don't need to go and fetch. It's just that about the caching I'm talking.
Someone else? Nope. Thank you.
Thank you.